again, there's a statement that he made, a piece of it which you just heard a few minutes ago, about how some of their family members and even lawyers, friends at the bench were asking, whenever there were previous instances of justices being appointed by previous presidents to the Supreme Court, there's always a question about when his name was going to come up. Then there was a fundamental question as to whether there's no prescribed guideline as to how justices are appointed to the Supreme Court, which of course we know is in the Constitution. But is there anything more than that in terms of consideration as to who the president will appoint to the Supreme Court? Take a listen to this.
For some of us, up to today, has been exceptionally long. You have the faith and confidence that this day will arrive. Finally, it has arrived. The dreadful questions that our children ask, Daddy, this time to your name hasn't come on the list. Today is over.
Well, this particular comment and also the applause that it received, and in fact, for Justice Seniority, as he indicated, for him and many others who align, is his record as longest serving, at least, is the one that cannot be contested at any point. But then again, why is it the case that if seniority is a factor in terms of the consideration of the president appointing justices to the Supreme Court, why did it have to, as he indicated, have to wait this long? What other considerations beyond the dictates of Article 128 of the 1992 Constitution that prescribes exactly the procedures that the president has to consider, and in fact, that has to go by in appointing justice to the Supreme Court? Specific detail of Article 128 of the 1992 Constitution. Martin Kpebu is private legal practitioner. He's joining us right now on Zoom for a conversation. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us right now. But is there any specific consideration or convention, as it were, that guides the president in consultation with the Council of State and then also the Judicial Council in appointing justices to the Supreme Court? Reason why persons who are senior than others would not be appointed, and others who are junior will be appointed over and above the seniors. What goes into this?
Okay, yes. There is the constitutional provision that stipulates what or the criteria the president should use in appointing Supreme Court justices. But naturally, beyond the Constitution, there are other factors that you won't find written down rigidly. So we'll come to that, but let's start with the Constitution. So Article 128 of the Constitution basically provides that the president will look at, for the candidate, for a person that the president intends to appoint to the Supreme Court, he should have a high moral character. That's one. Then two, proven integrity. And then three, not below 15 years, or in other words, at least 15 years standing as a lawyer. Okay, so these are the basic criteria, right? That's a hard letter of the law. Of course, there are other things that though you don't see strictly, because it's public service, they say should not have been convicted, okay, of an offense involving fraud. Those things, yes, naturally they come to play. Yes, because Justice Amoe's case, when he was convicted of an offense involving fraud, he was removed. So that's a Supreme Court decision. So there are those certain criminal offenses too that if the person has such a criminal record, the person is disqualified. And now let's come to the other critical decider, which is that is where often maybe you find it as the greatest factor. Presidents tend to choose candidates that they find share their own philosophies. So you hear some judges are conservatives, you hear others are liberal, okay? Then break it further. You hear some judges like the policies of what? The MPP, others like the policies of the NDC. Those are very, very, very critical factors to get in. You can't run away. I mean, don't forget last year when Chief Justice Tokonu wrote to President Kufuor to appoint 5 more justices. We did the analysis. We said all these things. These are very critical. So put it in plain words. A president want to choose a person that believes in his philosophies. They share the same ideologies. So let's take the US example, the recent ones. You see, when Trump was campaigning to be elected, his first term, not this one, he told people in America that if they voted for him, he would appoint the kind of justices who would cancel Roe versus Wade. And lo and behold, Justice Comey, the Catholic judge, of course, usually most of the Supreme Court judges in the US for a long time, these were Catholics. Yeah, Comey, the lady, is Catholic, and etc. And you see, when the case went to court, eventually, Roe versus Wade, that's the abortion case, the case that made abortion generally legal in the US, right, was struck down. And this is a case that for decades, since the 70s, people have gone to court year in, year out, trying to overthrow it. It didn't work. But Trump promised voters that if they voted for him, he would choose the right kind of justices who share in the ideology that that's pro-life, the pro-life ideology. That is say, don't kill babies. Baby, once a woman conceives, it is life. You can never say that it only the fetus becomes life after certain weeks or no. For them, once you've conceived, that is life. So you see that example where a presidential candidate says something and he is given the mandate, then he goes to find the candidates, the Supreme Court justices who fit that bill, and boom, it is done. Yes, they are bolder because naturally, they are an advanced society, so they are able to do certain things more than we do. Otherwise, we are still a bit shy about some of these things. That's a typical example for you. We could go on and on and on, right? So in the same way in Ghana, when Akufo-Addo was president, we choose people that he tended to think would be favorable, have his to his policies, have his own they share in his philosophy, etc. So that's it. And the same manner, President Mahama would also choose in such a manner. I mean, of course, once in a while you get an exception to the rule, but generally that is the rule.
I see. So essentially, seniority, yes, is a factor to consider, but then again, a president can exercise his discretion to set that aside and not use that as a major consideration. And as you have referenced in previous cases, somebody who is junior to another at the bench would be appointed to the Supreme Court over and above his or her seniors, and that's allowed.
Absolutely. Yes, seniority is usually not the main reason to get into the Supreme Court. If we were using seniority, you see Justice Jamefe, yes, he is president of the Court of Appeal. He's been for a while, since Justice Kusiapia retired. But the last list that Chief Justice Tokonu presented to President Kufuor didn't have Senior Jamefe's name in it. Senior Jamefe at the time was the most senior Court of Appeal judge. His name wasn't there. Then let's use another example. Justice Kusiapia, who retired. Yes, he was the most senior Court of Appeal judge. So he was the president of the Court of Appeal. Yet Kusiapia was never appointed to the Supreme Court. Then take Justice Gaiwu, yes, my good friend. Justice Gaiwu, very nice man. You know, at the bar, he went to the Supreme Court, even the High Court not long ago, and then to the Supreme Court. So I met him, practice at the bar with him. Very nice gentleman. The one who, was an MPP presidential candidate, etc. He was in the High Court, but you see that once President Kufuor said, "It's Gaiwu I want," he was jumped straight from the High Court to the Supreme Court, ahead of all these justices who have been sworn in today, all these 7. Justice Gaiwu came and met them, right? But he was jumped ahead of all of them. We can go on and on and on. So it's usually not about that much seniority. Once in a while, yes, it comes in, but it's not the major factor.
All right. Counsel, appreciate your time on this, and thank you so much.